class. Welcome again in your English Kaksha. In this class, we are going to discuss the very first chapter of your Hornbill book, that is The Portrait of a Lady. It is beautifully penned by Khushwant Singh. First, we will discuss about Khushwant Singh and then we will see what is given in the text of this chapter. Khushwant Singh, who was an Indian author, lawyer, diplomat and politician, and he was considered one of the paramount of Indian writers. And whereas the name of this chapter is considered The Portrait of a Lady, who was the lady in this chapter? His grandmother. Yes, this chapter, The Portrait of a Lady, is a heartwarming pen picture of Khushwant Singh's grandmother, who brought him up. In this chapter, he is explaining the character, behavior, physical appearance and routine of his grandmother. He is explaining his association with his grandmother and the changes that come about in their relationship with the passage of time. And even though her simplicity and beauty left an inaudible imprint on his mind, that he has explained in this chapter, The Portrait of a Lady. Now we will see what is given in the text. But before that, some expressions are given in the beginning here. You can see the thought that was almost revolting, an expanse of pure white serenity, a turning point, accepted her seclusion with resignation, a veritable bedlam of chirpings, frivolous rebukes, the saging skins of the dilapidated drum. All these expressions are very important to understand because these can come in the short questions. I will give the explanation of these expressions in the description box. You can note it down from there for your preparations. But when I will explain the text, I will tell you the meaning of these expressions. So listen that very carefully when we will do the text. Now we will read the text. My grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years that I had known her. People said that she had once been young and pretty and had even had a husband. But that was hard to believe. The beginning is very simple. As he said, his grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman, and she was old and wrinkled faced lady for the last 20 years. And people said that she had once been young and pretty and had a husband, but that was hard to believe. Here he has used the expression that was hard to believe. I will tell you what is the meaning of that was hard to believe. Actually, the thought about which the people were talking of her young age and her beauty or the prettiness, that was hard to believe for the author because it raised a doubt in the mind of the author. He always found it too hard to believe as he had always seen her in the same old age and wrinkled physical condition. From when? For the last 20 years. It is given here for the last 20 years. That's why it was hard to believe. In the next lines, he is giving the description of his grandfather. My grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece. Mantelpiece means a structure around a fireplace. His grandfather's portrait was in the drawing room above the mantelpiece, and in the portrait he was wearing a big turban and loose fitting clothes. His long white beard covered the best part of his chest, and he looked at least 100 years old. He did not look the sort of a person who would have a wife or children. He means to say that while looking at the portrait of his grandfather, nobody could guess that sort of a person could have a wife or children because his age was looking almost 100 years old, and he did not look the sort of person, here it is given, who would have a wife or a children. He looked as if he could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. Fine. So this is the description of his grandfather. In the next line again, he is telling us about his grandmother. As for my grandmother being young and pretty, comparison is given actually here. As for my grandmother being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. This is the very first expression that is given in the top of the chapter. The thought was almost revolting. I'll tell you the meaning of this expression. Listen it very carefully. The thought, which thought? The thought that the author's grandmother was once young and pretty. This was the thought, and it was almost revolting. Why it was almost revolting? Because it raises a doubt in the mind of the author, and he finds it too hard to believe, as he had always seen her in the same old and wrinkled physical condition for the last 20 years. It was given in the beginning also. Here, the same thing again he has explained through this expression, that is, the thought was almost revolting, right? She often told us of the games she used to play as a child that seemed quite absurd and undignified. Absurd means ridiculous, funny. Undignified means foolish, funny and foolish. The games which she used to tell us that she used to play as a child was actually foolish and funny at her part. And we treated the talks or the games that she used to tell us, we treated it like the fables of the prophet she used to tell us, like the stories of the saints. Fine. She had always been short and fat and slightly bent. Here the physical appearance of the author's grandmother is given. She had always been short. In height she was short, fat and slightly bent. Slightly bent, the person while walking used to bend herself or himself, that is called bent. Her face was crisscross of wrinkles running from everywhere to everywhere. His face was full of wrinkles. No, we were certain that she had always been, as we had known her, old, so terribly old that she could not have grown older. This is very, very important to understand. He says that from the last 20 years, from the very first day, as he started to look at his grandmother, she was looking as old as now. Now means when the author was of 20 years. She could never have been pretty, but she was always beautiful. Features were very, very beautiful. That's why she is called beautiful here. She hobbled. Hobbled means walk awkwardly. She always used to walk in the house here and there, in her spotless white sari, with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop, and the other telling the beads of rosary. Rosary means on a kind of, you can say, a garland of beads on which the elder people used to read the scriptures. That is called rosary. Her silver locks means her silver hair were scattered untidily over her pale, puckered face. Pale, puckered face. Puckered face means full of wrinkles. Here, puckered face, that is full of wrinkles. Puckered face, full of wrinkles. Her lips constantly moved in inaudible prayer. She used to say her prayer in a very low voice. Yes, she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountains, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. This is the second expression. Now I will tell you what is the meaning of this expression. Actually, this expression, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment, refers to the calm, peaceful and serene character and conduct. Conduct means behavior of the author's grandmother. She was very peaceful, right? She is compared to the peaceful winter landscape in the mountains. She was always attired. Attired means she was always in the spotless white sari, and her silver hair. In this way, she has been presented a picture of pure white serenity. Now we will read the next passage that is very, very important, because from this passage we will come to know the routine life and the relationship of the author with his grandmother. See the text. My grandmother and I were good friends. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. Here the author says that His grandmother and he were good friends, and his parents left him with her when they went to live in the city, and they were constantly together and they were caring each other. She used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for school. This is the routine of the grandmother. What she used to do? She used to wake him up in the morning and get him ready for the school. She said her morning prayer in the monotonous sing-song while she bathed and dressed him, in the hope that I would listen and get to know that prayer by heart. I listened. I means the author. The author listened that prayer because he loved her voice but never cared to learn that prayer. Then she would fetch my wooden slate. Wooden slate was used to write upon in the ancient time, and at that time when the author was in the school, that's why the wooden slate is here. As we are using the copy or the notebook to write upon, at that time wooden slate were there. तख्ती जिसको बोलते हैं, and it was plastered with a yellow chalk. गाची मिट्टी से इसको प्लास्टर किया जाता था. I listened because I loved her voice but never bothered to learn it. Then she used to, or she would fetch my wooden slate, which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk, a tiny earthen ink pot, and a red pen. Tie them all in a bundle and hand it to me. She used to keep all the things together before going to school and hand it to me, or hand that things to the author. After a breakfast of a thick, stale chapati with a little butter and sugar spread on it, we went to school. After having their breakfast, they used to went to school while keeping the stale chapatis. Upon the chapati, she used to keep the butter and sugar upon that, so that she could give that chapatis to the village dogs. This was the routine of the grandmother, to give the chapatis to village dogs, right? My grandmother always went to school with me because the school was attached to the temple. Why did the grandmother go to school with him? Because the school was attached to the temple. The priest taught us the alphabet and the morning prayer, while the children sat in the rows on either side of the veranda, singing the alphabet or the prayer in a chorus. Chorus means in a group. My grandmother sat inside reading the scriptures. Scriptures means holy books. When we had both finished means when the class was over and her puja was over, we would walk back together. This time the village dogs would meet us at the temple door. They followed us to our home, growling and fighting with each other for the chapatis we threw to them. And on the way, the village dogs always follow them, and they used to fight for the chapatis that his grandmother used to give them. When my parents were comfortably settled in the city, they sent for us. That was a turning point. Turning point. It is also an expression. What does it mean? Actually, this turning point refers to the point where the author's relationship with his grandmother changes drastically after they moved to city house. Earlier they were living in the village, and the grandmother is unable to accompany the author to school as she travelled by motor bus. We will read it in the next text. That's why it is called a turning point here. Although we shared the same room, my grandmother no longer came to my school with me. I used to go to an English school in a motor bus. There were no dogs in the streets. She used to feeding sparrows in the courtyard of our city house. You can see in the village, she used to carry the food or the chapatis for the village dogs, and in the city, she took to feeding sparrows in the courtyard of the city house. So that's why it is called here turning point. Why it is called turning point? Because the grandmother was unable to accompany the author to school as he travelled by motor bus. Neither was she able to help him in his lessons, although they shared the same room. A sort of distancing occurred in their relationship. That's why it is called a turning point, right? As the years rolled means passed away, we saw less of each other. For some time she continued to wake me up and get me ready for school. When I came back, she would ask me what the teacher had taught me. I would tell her English words and little things of Western science and learning, the law of gravity, Archimedes' principle, and the world being around us. This made her unhappy. Why? She was unhappy because earlier in the school she used to give him the lessons of God and the scriptures, but now in English school there was no lessons or no teaching about God. That's why she felt disappointed. One day I announced that we were being given the lessons of music also. She was very disturbed to listen that, because to her music had lewd associations. Lewd means connected to low level. It was the monopoly of the harlots and the beggars. Harlots means prostitutes, and beggars, the people who beg for alms. And she thought that music was only for the prostitutes and the beggars, and that was not meant for the gentlefolk. She said nothing, but her silence meant disapproval. She rarely talked to me after that. So this was the routine of the grandmother in the city. After that, what happened? How did the routine of the author change when he went to a university? See, that is given in the next text. When I went up to university, I was given a room of my own. The common link of friendship was snapped. Snapped means torn out or finished. My grandmother accepted her seclusion with resignation. What does this expression mean? This shows the author's grandmother's passive submission to her secluded life after she gradually loses touch with her grandson. She felt very isolated, and even though the common link of friendship between the two was snapped, she rarely talked to anyone in the house and was busy spinning the wheel and reciting the prayers only. We will read this in the next lines also. She rarely left her spinning wheel to talk to anyone. Here it is given. From sunrise to sunset, she sat by her wheel spinning and reciting prayers. Only in the afternoon she relaxed for a while to feed the sparrows. This was the routine of the grandmother. She used to feed the sparrows in the city, and this was a particular routine and she never missed it. While she sat in the veranda, breaking the bread into little bits, hundreds of little birds collected round her, creating a veritable bedlam of chirping. That is given here, a veritable bedlam of chirping. Bedlam. Chirping means a noise, confusion and chaos caused by the chirping of the sparrows that scattered and perched around the author's grandmother. Hundreds of birds came there and perched on her legs, other on her shoulders, some even sat on her head. She smiled but never shooed them away. It used to be the happiest half hour of the day for her. She never used to talk to anyone, but she used to talk to the sparrows. How? While shielding them or giving them the food. See the next passage. When I decided to go abroad for the further studies, I was sure my grandmother would be upset. I would be away for 5 years, and at her age one could never tell. But my grandmother could. She was not even sentimental. She came to leave me at the railway station, but did not talk or show any emotion. Her lips moved in prayer. Her mind was lost in prayer. Her fingers were busy telling the beads of her rosary. Silently she kissed my forehead, and when I left, I cherished the moist imprint as perhaps the last sign of physical contact between us. Here the author is saying when he was going abroad for his further studies for 5 years, he was not expecting that it was easy for his grandmother to hear. But he was surprised to see that his grandmother not only came at the railway station to leave him, and even though she did not show any emotion, her lips moved in prayer, her mind was lost in prayer, but when he touched her imprints or his feet to take the blessing, he thought that it could be the last physical contact between them. But that was not so. Why? After 5 years I came back home. When the author came back home after 5 years, and was met by her at the railway station. She was again there at the railway station to receive him. She did not look a day older. She was as old as for the last 20 years. She still had no time for words. What she was doing? She was just reciting the prayer and reading the rosary. She still had no time for words, and while she clasped me in her arms, I would hear her reciting her prayers. Even on the first day of my arrival, her happiest moments were with her sparrows, whom she fed longer, and with frivolous rebukes. Frivolous rebukes means the sparrows came in huge numbers and the grandmother fed them with little bits of bread. Sometimes she used to scold them. That is called frivolous rebukes. The sparrows perched on legs, shoulders, and even sat on her head, and she smiled and never shooed them away. It is actually a casual and light-hearted rebuke that the grandmother gave to the sparrows. See the next passage, what is given here. In the evening, a change came over her. Which change came over her? She did not pray. She collected the women of the neighborhood, got an old drum, and started to sing. For several hours, she thumped the saging skins of the dilapidated drum. Means the condition of the drum was very poor and pathetic, and sang of the homecoming of warriors. We had to persuade her to stop to avoid overstraining. That was the first time since I had known her that she did not pray. And the next morning, that overstraining resulted. She fell ill. It was a mild fever, and the doctor told us that it would go. But my grandmother thought differently. What she was thinking, she told us that her end was near, and she said that since only a few hours before the close of the last chapter of her life, she had omitted to pray. She was not going to waste any more time talking to us. It was very hard for the author that time when he came to know that it was the last, this was the last time of his grandmother. We protested, but she ignored our protests. She lay peacefully in bed, praying and telling her beads. Even before we could suspect, her lips stopped moving and the rosary fell from her lifeless fingers. A peaceful pallor spread on her face, and we knew that she was dead. After that, a peaceful calm spread on her face, and then we came to know that she was dead. We lifted her off the bed, as is customary, laid her on the ground and covered with her a red shroud. Here, the author is explaining a very emotional moment of her death. He is saying that he and his family members lifted the dead body from the bed and laid her on the ground and covered that with the red shroud. After a few hours of mourning, we left her alone to make arrangements for her funeral. In the evening, we went to her room with a crude stretcher to take her to cremated. The sun was setting and had lit her room and veranda with a blaze of golden light. We stood halfway in the courtyard. Why? Because all over the veranda and in her room, right up to where she lay dead and stiff wrapped in the red shroud, thousands of sparrows sat scattered on the floor. There was no chirping. We felt very sorry for the birds to whom she used to feed, and my mother fetched some bread for them. She broke it into little crumbs as the grandmother used to do, and threw it to them. The sparrows took no notice of the bread. When we carried my grandmother's corpse off, they flew away quietly, without taking a single crumb of bread. Next morning, the sweeper swept the breadcrumbs into the dustbin. So, in this way, the sparrows gave a tribute to the grandmother who was dead, right? And they did not take a single crumb of the bread. Fine. So, this is from the chapter The Portrait of a Lady. I hope each and everything is clear to you from this chapter, The Portrait of a Lady. Thank you and have a nice day.